Hey, what's going on there, guys? Welcome back here to a Friday update. It is the Earthmaster here on this Friday, February 16th, 2024. It's about 11:30 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity looks like some movement here across the Alaska area. Also a 3.0 coming in here around a portion of the Middle America Trench down there. Going to start off here with some earthquake activity ramping up off the coast of Iceland across the peninsula here. This is southwest of Grindavik. You can see the rift zones out here in these little lines. A little bit of elevated activity here stirring up in the last 12 hours. It does look like we're increasing in the multitude of quakes here, so we've got to watch this pretty closely. About 52 earthquakes here in the last 12 hours, and again, specifically right around this area where we're seeing this kind of a decent swarm out here. I was looking at the tilt meters out here. This is the monitoring station here that shows GPS uplift. Across the Grindavik area, we are still continuing to rise here in terms of inflation. The last 8-hour run here, these dots indicating 8-hour run time, still show inflation going up. And that means that we're probably going to be looking at an eruption again soon. I'm guessing maybe potentially here by the end of the month. We have been looking at regular intervals of eruptive activity there across the Grindavik area on a roughly about a 30-day time period. So we'll see if this rings true. They did put out an article here yesterday that magma accumulation continues beneath the Svartsengi area. So the model calculations here suggesting magma accumulation will reach similar levels as was noted prior to last eruption by the end of February or beginning of March. So that would be about a 30-day time period here in between this last eruption here and our new eruption potentially taking place here at the end of this month. Now it looks like the potential area of interest is going to be around the Hagafell area northeast, where they did add a new zone over here, it looks like, a zone 6. Let me bring this down here just a little bit. I know it's off the map here. Zone 6, indicating here on the east side of this area, shows sinkholes, fault movements, and lava flows. But I think the main area where we're going to see maybe some further eruptive activity is still within these zones right here. And, of course, can't forget potentially some activity down here, because look at this map here. We did see some activity stirring up just into the town of Grindavik back in January, the 15th eruption there. The December activity and our most recent activity here in early February, roughly about the same place as the December event. So very possible we could see maybe further up north, maybe a little bit further east or further south, depending on where this magma intrusion wants to find the easy breakthrough. Now, when we see this eruptive activity, we're not really depleting any. Oh, well, we're depleting some of the activity underneath the surface there, as far as the volume of magma goes, but we're not depleting it completely. So, it's all under pressurization here when we get this magma intrusion into this dike area, by the way, which extends here about this area southwestward, just off the coast here of the Grindavik area. So that magma is still down there. It's still accumulating some pressurization from below, and it looks as though we're going to potentially increase it here rapidly with this earthquake activity that's occurring offshore here into the rift zones. Now, I've been watching this here in each eruption. Just before each eruption, we see elevated earthquake activity out here. I don't think we're caught up yet in terms of the volume needed to break through the surface here in terms of the repressurization of the system, but this is actually a very interesting little earthquake swarm here, kind of a something to watch here pretty closely. We'll see if it does have any major effect in terms of eruptive activity in the area, but for now it's pretty decent. And let me go back here to the map and see what else they may be stating out here. Bring this back up a little bit. I thought I was going to bring it up a little bit. Looks like that page may have froze here. There we go. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, so basically the accumulated magma could pop through the surface by the end of February or beginning of March, by which time likelihood of dike propagation here and volcanic eruption will increase significantly. Let's see here. What else we got? Yeah, that's about it. They're just kind of noting the earthquake activity here and the elevated inflation charts. All right, let's get back into regular earthquake activity out here across the globe. Washington did see a little earthquake up here outside of Seattle. Now, this is a 50-kilometer deep 3.5. I think we all know what's down there at 50 kilometers, right? Not any surface faults. I mean, there's obviously surface faults over here across the area near the Seattle fault zone that runs underneath Seattle. But this is associated with the tremor activity, I believe, in the area. Now, of course, tremor occurs as the subduction area, the Juan de Fuca plate, subducts underneath the North American plate here, right? So North America is pretty much overlapping or on top of the Juan de Fuca plate now, right? Sliding that Juan de Fuca plate underneath the area, creating the volcanoes out here across the Cascades. And, of course, upstream here, we get upstream from the deeper activity, we get this tremor activity about 45 kilometers deep or so into the area. And, of course, further upstream, we get the locked area where the strain is building for the next big 9-pointer out here. And the last one, by the way, was back in 1700, so 324 years ago and counting. No doubt there's quite a bit of strain built up, whether it's enough or not for a large earthquake. We'll have to continue to watch that. But we have been seeing elevated tremor activity out here across the region. I do think that's adding some strain potentially into the regions further below. A lot of times we do see this earthquake activity in the deeper areas here. So we'll continue to watch that. It's fairly deep, 50 kilometers deep here. That's even at that depth, it looks like a few folks did feel that earthquake out there across the area of Seattle. So we'll continue to watch that. It has been, somewhat elevated out here with some surface quakes taking place across the Cascades recently in the last week or so, and it still looks like that is occurring today. Further down south into California here, got one little earthquake outside of the Redding area, 2.7, very shallow, kind of a crustal quake up here. The rest of the state here, let's see what we got going on in Southern California now. We did see a little bit of activity out here across the Ontario region. This earthquake coming in last night, 3.6. A couple other earthquakes out here overnight as well, 2-pointer, and some further movement out here near the Malibu Fault. Malibu Coast Fault. This is where we've seen that 4-pointer here recently. So it looks like things may be starting to pick back up here in the area. Now, there's not a whole bunch of compact swarms going on here in one specific location. This is more of an active event across a region of Southern California right here. So we'll continue to watch that. Of course, we did see some further activity here yesterday and overnight around our other swarming areas. Let me bring up the last 7 days here and show you guys the activity. Had a couple different swarms here and here, very close to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. And, of course, we had some activity out here as well around the Malibu Fault. So continued, we're still seeing some elevated activity out here. I don't think we're done with it yet. Definitely looking a little bit more active than what we have been here recently or in the past. All right, what else we got? Through the Montana area and Idaho, scattered activity up here, it looks like. Don't really see anything major going on, just some microquakes. As far as the Yellowstone National Park, see what's going on here across that area. Let's see here, Purple Mountain, little spike of an earthquake right here. But generally, this is all, even some of these little smaller spikes here are all very common earthquakes. Really no earthquake swarm, no magma movement, no doom and gloom on the map here for this Friday, at least for Yellowstone. Taking a look out further and about, a little activity here across the new Madrid seismic zone. That little 1.7 coming in earlier this morning, local time here, my time. Aside from that, fairly calm out there across the east coast. A bigger picture of the view here. Looks like Puerto Rico seeing somewhat. Yeah, I think most of this is from yesterday here. Let's see what we got. Yeah, it's from yesterday, 4.1. A couple other earthquakes up there from yesterday. Right now we got 2.4 coming in just to the southwestern edge of Puerto Rico, but that's kind of a swarming area. Always see some swarming going on there in that region. But this earthquake right here, fairly deep yesterday, 4.1. So that means that we could see some enhancing activity out here across the area. Really not seen it yet, but we'll continue to watch that throughout the day due to that deeper movement. South America, most of this from yesterday here. We did have a 4.4 down in the Chile area. And a look at the earthquake 3D globe here shows a handful of smaller quakes and whatnot. Very typical up along the Middle America Trench as well. As far as the Curl Kamchatka and the areas around the western Pacific here, looks about the same as what we've seen last night. Maybe a new 4.8 here. Let me see what we got across this area of Japan. 4.8. This one's back along the surface level, similar to what I mentioned here yesterday about this earthquake. Excuse me. I don't need hiccups right now, right? So this right smack dab looks like right prior to the subduction zone of the Japan Trench. That's a key indicator here of some regional strain up at the surface levels. We have been seeing quite a bit of deeper activity here into the subduction zones. Of course, deeper activity will be straining the regions upstream, right? It makes sense. And this earthquake right here is just kind of a key indicator of the stress that's built up out here. And no doubt, I think this zone right here is capable of seeing a really large earthquake. Talking about above a 7 here soon. I mean, it's been building up for quite a while. I say it a lot, but this area does not take hundreds of years to build up strain for a large earthquake. On average, slip rates around 83 mm per year. Certain regions may see more, but it's a fairly decent accumulated slip rate there on a given time on the yearly chart. So continue to watch that. Definitely showing some activity just before things get down into the tension zone there where the locked areas exist. All right, further south and about, we got a 4.5. That was in the Tonga area once again, 325 kilometers deep. Looks like we did see some further movement there across New Zealand on the EMSC globe here with a fairly deep 4-pointer and some other earthquakes there across New Zealand. So let's go see what's going on there. Across the GeoNet servers, see if these guys are up. It looks like they are. 2.5. 4 hours ago, it looks like. Some movement. Now, this is going to be yesterday for their time. But 3.1 coming in as well. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of activity out here, but there's that 4.1 up along the Kermadec Trench. Fairly recent, 40 minutes ago. A couple smaller quakes here, but I'm really not seeing anything major going on. Let's check out the earthquake drum, see if we got any major swarming going on out here across the area of the seismograph stations. There's that little bit of activity from last night, it looks like. Really not seeing anything major going on out here for now. Quite a few seismograph stations there look awfully quiet. All right. See what else we have out here across the area. Let's go to Hawaii, see what's going on out here across the Big Island. A little bit of movement here. 21 kilometers underneath this area for a 2-pointer. One earthquake outside of Mauna Kea from early this morning, 42 kilometers deep as well. We've noticed a handful of earthquakes scattered out and about away from the normal areas here. And the normal areas I'm stating across the Kilauea volcano area, where we've been seeing elevated activity, and then also the Pahala area. We've seen a decent amount of deep earthquake activity out here, so it looks like definitely some moving around going on there over that hot spot at the deeper levels. So we'll continue to watch that. Far as any elevated activity goes today across the Kilauea volcano, still noticing a little pattern here of offshore swarming. not quite as intense as what we have seen in the past, but obviously, we had a huge displacement of magma recently down there in the area of the southwest rift zone and southeast, towards the southeast, towards the Loihi Seamount. And that's, it's just kind of a head scratcher here, wondering, well, what's going on here? I know it's sitting down there, but the question is, what's going to happen next? Definitely looks like there was some migration out here, right, over the past couple weeks. It shows that. As far as seismograph stations go here today, looks like a handful of earthquakes, no major earthquakes swarming. Doesn't look like there's any magma on the move right now. But far as the UWE station, this is the tilt meter showing leveling off here recently. So it's obvious what happened here. It had been elevated at the highest level since 2018, and eventually that pressurization down there found a weak spot off towards the southwest rift zone and dropped. This is the removal of magma from the summit in a huge way, and we've just been kind of staying level here. So it doesn't look like there's a huge input of magma, or at least pressurization going on across the summit area for now, because that's where this station is, the UWE. I'm more concerned with, that magma being offshore here and around the hill and the slump region could have an effect on that. I just wish there was a little bit more station details out here in terms of tilt meter. I'm monitoring the ground deformation out here. Past 2 days, couple days here. It's obviously got some charts, but really not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for specific tilt meters out there in the area. I don't need the glossary. I'm good. All right, but we'll continue to watch that for some further activity. And check out the webcams out here today, see what we got. Take a peek here real quick. Hope everyone's going to enjoy their Friday or get the chance to enjoy it. Their weekend's upon us. That is good news. Here's a live view, it looks like here, 216, yep, of the summit region, the Kilauea Lava Lake area. Still seeing some volcanic gases, but that's very typical. These are not up in the sky. This is lens flare happening there. You can see the lens flare, and that occurs quite often. It happens on webcams. It happens on phones, digital cameras. Just that's part of photography. You got this lens flare happening when it's directly looking at the sun almost. But as far as any unusual activity, doesn't look like anything major is going on there across the southwest rift zone, but obviously stuff is going on underneath the area, which we'll have to watch and see what happens. Either way, looks like a beautiful day out there in Hawaii. All right, what else we got here across the region of China over here, far western China. Looks like a couple fours out here earlier this morning in the vicinity of some, that area has actually been swarming nicely here over the last week or so. So it's within that same swarm area. Mediterranean area looks like a 3.3 coming in there to the Italy area. Handful of smaller quakes out here as well. And again, Iceland area up north here, definitely seeing some elevated activity in terms of earthquake movement. But for the most part, the rest of the divergent boundary out here looks fairly quiet. Nothing really showing up right now. All right, space weather. We did have a pretty decent X flare last night. That was a really sharp, really short event. That's a pretty decent flare, X 2.5. Did produce a beautiful eruptive image here, but anything that does blast off from this area, or did blast off, will be directed away from Earth. But that's still a beautiful image there of some flaring. We're left with, let's go to the most recent image today here. We're left with quite a bit of sunspots out here, but as you can see, there's not a whole lot of complexity. When you look for complexity, let's see what we got last night from this area, 3576 here. Notice all these different deep colors all surrounding each other. This thing amplified pretty nicely yesterday and the day before, but when it was in position out here directly facing the Earth, it looked like it was decaying, but yeah, it started to reorganize out here once it got, pretty much out of sight, and then it produced that X flare. So for right now, we're not really looking at any major complex regions here, at least currently facing the Earth. So flare threat level, at least for the Earth-facing side, is low. 99% chance for C flare, M flare at 55, X flare around 15% chance or so. Still seeing a little proton event lingering across the southern polar regions here. Southern polar region and a little bit up here across the northern area as well. And it looks like that flare, or it looks like that sunspot area over here is still flaring. Still producing a solar flare party out there. Out of sight, but we're still getting some of the effects there in the ionosphere from those charged particles that get shot off from the flares. Not a whole lot in terms of auroras. Hopefully we can change that here soon, folks, because it seems like a lot of these flares have been missing us completely. As far as any major CMEs go, it's just been kind of like playing dodgeball. The Earth is doing a great job of dodging all these events. All right, Storm Prediction Center here today for severe weather. There's a marginal risk for some severe weather here across, looks like mainly Arkansas over here, venturing somewhat into the Tennessee area. Looks like main threat, maybe it's going to be a little bit of hail. Really nothing in terms of wind or tornado probability, but a little bit of hail potential out there across areas of Arkansas around North Little Rock and Jonesboro area. We got our next big storm happening out here across the west coast as we head into the weekend. There it is, knocking on the door of California. Some decent precipitation accumulation rates out here for this storm, but the second one I think is going to be a little bit more stronger. This one comes in right after our weekend storm as we head into early next week, and this will bring quite a bit of rainfall here to the entire state as it kind of sits offshore and recirculates and brings some further bands of rain in. Looks like maybe a little break for a couple days after that, and we'll have to see. This is a ways out here. This is the first week of March. Things can change, but it does look like we're going to stay quite wet out here through the the rest of February. All right, what else we got? Anything else going on here? Really no major earthquake activity here across the live seismos, so we'll see what Friday brings about. Have yourself a good day here, folks, and enjoy the weekend. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later tonight for the Friday night update. In the meantime, take care. We'll catch you guys back there for the Friday night update here.